Mr. Ofori-Atta was a travel risk or that he was an invalid who needed around-the-clock intense medical attention to the point that traveling to the jurisdiction would endanger his life. Upon the expiry of the 10 February 2025 deadline, Special Prosecutor publicly declared Mr. Ofori-Atta a wanted person and a fugitive from justice on 12 February 2025 on the ground that his avowed posture of remaining indefinitely outside the jurisdiction without indicating a reasonable time of his return to the jurisdiction showed clearly that he had no intention of voluntarily returning to the jurisdiction. By a letter dated 17 February 2025, Mr. Ofori-Atta's lawyers transmitted to the Special Prosecutor a communication laced with vituperation and designed variously as a denigration of the OSP, a lecture on their suppositions as to the mandate of the OSP, a threat of legal action, a sort of homily as to how the OSP should conduct its affairs, an attack on the person of the Special Prosecutor, and a suggestion that the Special Prosecutor had embarked on a personal vendetta against Mr. Ofori-Atta without disclosing the alleged series of retaliatory, vengeful, or hostile acts the Special Prosecutor had directed at him, or alleged exchange of such acts between Mr. Ofori-Atta and the Special Prosecutor. Crucially, the 17 February 2025 letter from Mr. Ofori-Atta's lawyers failed to indicate a reasonable date of Mr. Ofori-Atta's return to the jurisdiction and attendance at the OSP. On this reckoning, the OSP, by a letter dated 17 February 2025, reaffirmed and restated to Mr. Ofori-Atta that he remained a wanted person and a fugitive from justice. The OSP further stated that this tag will so remain until he indicated a reasonable time of his return to the jurisdiction, with the necessary and reasonable assurances of abiding by his indicated reasonable time, or until such time that the OSP enforces his return to the jurisdiction and attendance at the OSP, whichever came first. By a letter dated 18 February 2025, Mr. Ofori-Atta's lawyers communicated to the OSP that he was scheduled for a possible surgical intervention in the United States on 20 and 21 March 2025. And further that, taking the date of the possible surgical intervention into account, he would require a recovery period of 6 to 8 weeks. On this basis, his lawyer stated that he should be able to return to the jurisdiction between 14 and 30 May 2025. On the same day, by a letter dated 18 February 2025, the OSP graciously acceded to Mr. Ofori-Atta's request to return voluntarily to the jurisdiction between 14 and 30 May 2025, as the office deemed the indicated recovery period reasonable in the circumstances. Consequently, the OSP removed Mr. Ofori-Atta's name from the list of wanted persons pending his voluntary return to the jurisdiction based on his own indicated dates. Consequently, the OSP directed Mr. Ofori-Atta to attend the OSP in person on Monday, 2 June 2025 at 13:30 GMT for interview, which is today. The OSP emphasized that if he failed to voluntarily return to the jurisdiction within the stated dates, and if he failed to attend the OSP on the rescheduled date of Monday, 2 June 2025 at 13:30 GMT, his name will be re-entered on the list of wanted persons, and the OSP will consider him a fugitive from justice, whereupon the office will take all necessary legal steps to secure his return to the jurisdiction and attendance at the OSP at our own choosing. Then, by a letter dated 28 May 2025, Mr. Ofori-Atta's lawyers informed the Special Prosecutor that a medical expert has diagnosed Mr. Ofori-Atta with cancer and has earmarked 13 June 2025 for surgery, for which reason he would be unable to return to the jurisdiction as scheduled. His lawyer stated that to the knowledge of the OSP, this change in circumstances has been brought to the attention of the court for which Mr. Ofori-Atta is presently pursuing a human rights claim against the OSP and the special prosecutor. His lawyer stated further that in order not to hold the office back in the performance of his function, he had Mr. Ofori-Atta's instructions of his readiness to go through video recorded interview for the purpose of eliciting his caution statement. His lawyers offered to meet the special prosecutor in person or approach the bench for the purpose of viewing Mr. Ofori-Atta's biopsy report, whichever suited the special prosecutor. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the media, this is where we are now. And let us step back a bit from the 28th May 2025 letter from Mr. Ofori-Atta's lawyers and place the matters in their proper context. I have intentionally went through a tedious time. A letter from Mr. Ofori-Atta's lawyers, dated 18 February 2025, clearly indicated that a possible surgical intervention to be performed on him was to occur on 20 and 21 March 2025, upon which reckoning the OSP carefully considered the recovery period and indulgently pushed Mr. Ofori-Atta's attendance at the OSP to 2 June 2025. Therefore, Mr. Ofori-Atta had a duty to promptly inform the OSP of any fundamental change in his medical circumstances on 21 March 2025, when the advertised surgical intervention was not performed, to enable the OSP reschedule a new date of his attendance at the OSP to accommodate any such material changes in his medical condition and treatment itinerary. Mr. Ofori-Atta has known, at least since 21 March 2025, that no surgical procedure was to be performed on him in March. Yet, he purposely sat by indolently and chose not to inform the OSP of such fundamental changes in his circumstances. Instead, about 67 days after learning of the alleged changed circumstances around 21 March 2025, Mr. Ofori-Atta elected to spring a surprise on the OSP on 28 May 2025, just 6 days before his scheduled attendance at the OSP, by offering to undergo a video recorded interview and a viewing of his biopsy report. Now, back to the 28 May 2025 letter from the lawyers of Mr. Ofori-Atta. As I said, this is where we are. By a letter dated 30 May 2025, the OSP declined Mr. Ofori-Atta's offer of video recorded interview for the purpose of eliciting his caution statement. This office has always insisted on his personal attendance, and we have indicated clearly to him that we are unwilling to waive it. If we were amenable to taking any such statement from Mr. Ofori-Atta in absentia, we would have done so in February and not waited to 2 June 2025. We want him here physically, and we insist on it. A suspect in a criminal investigation does not pick and choose how the investigative authority should conduct its investigations and the method suitable to him and his convenience. We will not countenance such conduct, not in this case or in any other case. Further, the OSP has declined Mr. Ofori-Atta's invitation to view his biopsy report, as we consider it a pointless exercise. This is because it is common learning that the biopsy report contains nothing more than a conclusion upon the removal and examination of tissue, cells, or fluids from a living body that some disease or malady was indicated in the samples taken. A biopsy report is not an expression of a reasoned medical opinion that the subject of the report is an invalid and unable to travel, as Mr. Ofori-Atta seeks to suggest is his condition, and for which reason he says he cannot return to the jurisdiction. This much is clear. Since 24 January 2025 till date, Mr. Ofori-Atta has failed to show any medical report. I underline, he has failed to show any medical report which suggests that he is a travel risk and unable to return to the jurisdiction by reason of his medical condition. It has all been his say-so, his singular say-so. Therefore, The OSP views Mr. Ofori-Atta's lawyer's letter dated 28 May 2025 as an expression of utter bad faith on the part of Mr. Ofori-Atta, and it confirms our long-held, well-considered opinion and conclusion that Mr. Ofori-Atta has no intention of voluntarily returning to the jurisdiction and to attend the OSP. Further, this office is unaware of his purported information to the court, whether orally or by file processes, of the alleged change in his circumstances. Today is Monday, 2 June 2025. It is more than 3 hours past the scheduled time of Mr. Ofori-Atta's attendance at the OSP, and Mr. Ofori-Atta failed to attend the OSP today. Mr. Ofori-Atta's conduct is totally unacceptable and a baleful spite at law enforcement and criminal investigations. It ends here. It ends today. We will no longer accommodate him. Consequently, the OSP redeclares that Mr. Ofori-Atta is a wanted person and a fugitive from justice. His name is hereby re-entered on the OSP's list of wanted persons. The OSP will take all necessary legal steps to secure Mr. Ofori-Atta's return to the jurisdiction and to answer to the criminal inquiries against him. In pursuance of this, about 30 minutes before this briefing, I triggered processes for the issuance of an Interpol Red Notice for the location and provisional arrest of Mr. Kenneth Nanaya Ofori-Atta in whichever jurisdiction pending extradition or his surrender. Around the same time, I dispatched a request for extradition processes to be instituted for the provisional apprehension in any jurisdiction in which Mr. Ofori-Atta may be located or found, and his extradition to the Republic of Ghana. The OSP will prefer criminal charges in the courts against Mr. Ofori-Atta in due course, whether in absentia or otherwise. The principle upon which we proceed is that no person, regardless of title, regardless of status, regardless of medical condition, is beyond the reach of inquiry by the OSP. Thank you for coming. If you have any questions, I'll prepare to answer them. If you don't have any questions,
Don't you forget, the AM show is proudly sponsored by Whaley Properties. We provide quality housing at an affordable cost and with a flexible payment option. Welcome back, and we kickstart our big stories with our conversation on Special Prosecutor Kisi Ejabeng stirring controversy in turning former Minister for Finance Ken Ofori-Atta, or naming him a fugitive for the second time following his failure to comply with an earlier directive to show up in Ghana. We'll bring you details of that. Joining me in the studio, and he's going to be telling us, a bit about the office and this whole Ken Ofori-Atta dynamic. I have Samuel Appiah Dako. He is Director of Strategy, Research and Communication at the Office of the Special Prosecutor. Mr. Dako, good morning.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure having you here. And I'd like to find out, first off, some people have some misconceptions, misunderstandings about the office. Walk us briefly through what the office is all about.
Okay. Thank you very much. So the OSP simply stands for the Office of the Special Prosecutor and is Ghana's flagship anti-corruption agency. Now, why was the OSP created? It was, the law was passed in 2018 to address the persistent failures of past attempts to fight corruption in Ghana. So the OSP was created taking into consideration all the loopholes and the things that did not allow Ghana to effectively fight corruption. So what did the lawmaker do? The lawmaker decided that it was going to create an independent, politically insulated state institution. Often people think that the OSP is like a private organization headed by a lawyer, but no, it's a state institution that was created to meet both national and international anti-corruption commitments. Now, the OSP satisfied several requirements. If you take the African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption, the OSP was set up to meet that requirement because in the past, Ghana was not meeting that requirement. And one of the requirements is that you must have an independent agency. It must have investigative powers. It must be able to do asset recovery. And it must also liaise with international partners. And there's also another requirement that Ghana had to meet, which is the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. The OSP meets that. So, and then there's something called the Jakarta Principles, which allows every state party to make sure that they appoint, they have an anti-corruption body that is also independent with clear, transparent way of appointment, and then clear mandate as well as clear financial autonomy. And I'm saying that the creation of this office was to meet all these standards. Now, what does the OSP do? So often people do not understand what the OSP does. The OSP is a prosecutorial office, but it is an office that has been given police powers as well as asset recovery powers. So people often think that the OSP's job is only to prosecute. No. So it is the type of a prosecutor who has been given power to investigate and at the same time power to be able to recover proceeds of crime. And then the last one is that it should be able to even prevent corruption before it happens. So often people have been thinking whether the OSP can even arrest somebody. Why is the OSP seizing or searching people's property or other? It's because the OSP itself is not just a prosecutorial office, but has also been given police powers. And so it's able to do all these things. And the people that the OSP is supposed to investigate are public officials, politically exposed persons, and then persons in the private sector. So under the law, politically exposed persons is defined to include any person who is entrusted with a prominent public function in this country or in any other foreign country, and also any Ghanaian who works in an international organization. And also it includes senior political party officials, government, judicial, military officials who are all working in foreign countries. And then this is the catch. If you are an immediate family member of any politically exposed person, you automatically fall under the jurisdiction of the OSP. Now, although the office was created in 2018, it has had problems. And the problems did not make the office work as it should. So the OSP, in natural sense, started its full operation in 2022, 2023. So you can see people are always judging the office by going back to 2018. But if you see what happened, that there was even a lacuna, and then the problems with the first special prosecutor, the office actually started doing real work in 2022. So often when people are judging the office, they go back to 2018. By natural sense, it's 2022 that people should be judging the office from. Now, what are some of the powers of the OSP? The OSP is immune from external control, which means that the OSP is not controlled by the presidency, it's not controlled by the Attorney General, and it's not controlled by anybody. The OSP is supposed to be independent. And then the OSP also prosecutes independent of the Attorney General. Often people have said that the Attorney General directs the OSP as to what to do. No, when the OSP investigates and has sufficient evidence, it just goes to court. And then it has full police powers, and I said it can seize, freeze, and confiscate. And then there's one other thing the OSP does that a lot of people are not aware.
And I would like us to accelerate on this because we have to get into the
what we call the lifestyle audit. The OSP is able to do a lifestyle audit. Now, what makes the OSP unique is that it's perhaps one of the state institutions that is able to hold present government accountable. So let's go back to the previous regime, Nana Akufo-Addo's regime. You realize that under his regime, there were a lot of work that the OSP did. These were the people that the OSP investigated, and some of them are still in court. Some, the OSP disposed of it because there were not sufficient evidence. And then, if you look at institutions that the OSP has been investigating, you can see them listed there. The OSP did a lot of investigation into customs. We are doing more into Ghana Education Service. And if you look at past government officials, the OSP is now investigating Ken Ofori-Atta. It investigated President John Mahama as well. The OSP's intervention has been very phenomenal. Often people are focusing on just imprisonment, but if you look at the work that the OSP has been doing, it's also mandated to prevent corruption. We do that through a number of ways: corruption risks analysis, stopping contracts that are tainted with corruption and all that. And these have saved Ghana millions of cedis. Also, we have been blocking leakages in payroll scandals in the Ghana Education Service. And this in particular is very important because when we were working on this payroll fraud issue, just in the northern region alone, the OSP was able to block about 34 million Ghana cedis. And you can imagine that was for only a financial year, 2024. If it had not been identified, it meant that every year, Ghana was losing 34 million Ghana cedis only in the northern region. And you imagine if we extend this to all the other regions. So, in a nutshell, this is what the OSP has been doing. Prosecutions are underway. People have said that they don't see the OSP do anything. Some have even said that the OSP doesn't have any case in court. That's not true. There are a number of cases that the OSP has filed. Judicial process takes a while. Yes, the OSP has lost a case. It lost one case in Ashanti region. But the bottom line is that the OSP is now firmly
won any
footed.
case?
Yes, the OSP has won a case. The OSP has secured conviction. 6 persons have been convicted. And that's part of the broader investigation into Ghana Education Service in terms of
the GES.
In terms of ghost names, as well as we have a second aspect of GES, which has to do with people who pay for jobs. So those who are demanding money to place people, as well as that. So in a nutshell, but this is also very important. When we talk about prevention, and this will be my last intervention, the OSP thinks that in order to, because it has a mandate under its law to change culture, and the OSP thinks that the only way it can change culture is to start with the youth. So since 2024, the OSP has prepared a document and sent to Ministry of Education. They have a division called NACA. They are in charge of curriculum. And we are urging on the country to adopt this and introduce anti-corruption into our curriculum. Now, this anti-corruption scheme is not just to teach children what is corruption, what is this, but it's a project-based kind of learning. And we were in Cape Town. I'll give you an example. There was this child who had been filmed. They asked the children, who do you want to become? And this child said he wanted to become a corrupt businessman. Now, they further asked him, why do you want to become a corrupt businessman? And he told them that, well, in his community, the teachers, the nurses, the doctors, they don't have money. Some of them ride on a bicycle and motorbike. But Uncle Joe drives a black SUV and has so much money. He's a shrewd businessman, blah, blah, blah. So then it dawned on everybody that these children are looking up to the adults. So what we want to do is a project-based learning where children, for instance, will be asked, who do you want to become in future? Maybe he say wants to become a businessman. Now he will be given money in an envelope, and he will tell us what he wants to do with the money. And we'll see how he spends the money, whether in spending the money, this child is going to pocket some or he will not. So this is what we have been doing. But also we have been going to the schools and teaching people about corruption and why the youth should take corruption seriously and demand accountability from their leaders.
All right.
So in a nutshell, these are some of the things that we have been doing.
And that's it for the office.
Yes.
Now,
but then the office too has a very good reporting line, which is that these days you can either call us on the toll-free line, or you can email us, or you can even visit our office and then report corruption. And then we have a very secured online system where when you go, you can even report anonymously, or you can report if you want to give us your details. So we are just saying that the office has been building, and the office is now firmly rooted, although we have certain challenges that we think that people would have to also admit. And we have also said that if you're able to help us recover corrupt money, you can get up to 10% of the amount that has been recovered. And there's also protection for you when you
I want you to pause right there. So you're basically saying, if you just go back, you're saying that if someone blows the whistle on some corrupt act where money is involved or resources are involved, and the person the process is completed and the person is convicted, that person can get 10% of the recovered amount.
Yes, but the 10% is in contest. Remember, the law says that we must 50% goes back to the consolidated fund.
Right.
Then 10% is given to the Attorney General for ceding his power to the OSP. The OSP keeps 30%, and then the 10% is the amount that will go to the person who helps us. So the 10% will be the 10% out of the 40% that we are supposed to take 30%.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just doing that to let people know as well that if you blow the whistle and if it's credible information
Yeah,
you
there's
are giving, you
compensation.
can benefit.
I think someone has benefited when we did a custom case. The whistleblower indeed.
The kennel, whatever is used.
Yeah,
what
the
you're referring to.
customs division of the Ghana Revenue.
Right.
So yeah, and finally, then you can go on. There are teething problems that we face. One of them is that because we have not been written in the Constitution, there's a tendency that the OSP can be scrapped if you have 2/3 majority of MPs agreeing that it should be scrapped. And we think that that undermines the independence of the office. Also, we think that it's time that Ghana pass what we call a Corrupt Practices Act that will consolidate every conduct or action that is deemed corruption, especially if you look at the bigger definition of corruption at the United Nations, what we call the UNCAC. Because things like sextortion is not corruption in Ghana. Yet if you are there, you might think it is corruption. Influence peddling has not been legislated as corruption in Ghana, but if you are there, you might think it's corruption. And also, it's not every offense that Ghanaians call corruption, which is a corruption as defined in the OSP Act. So sometimes people are expecting you to take up a case, but you do not have a mandate. So when the OSP, for instance, investigated Madam Cecilia Adapa and realized that they fell under money laundering, people expected that the OSP should have gone ahead. But then the OSP couldn't go ahead because it does not have jurisdiction over money laundering. That's why the OSP had to refer it to the Economic and Organized Crime Office. And then there's one last feature which Ghana...
Just a quick question there. So two things. One, you talk about Act 959 and the possibility of repealing it, 2/3 majority in Parliament. Interestingly, we have an administration currently that literally has 2/3, especially as the independent members of Parliament caucus with them. So that's a danger for you, right?
Yeah, that's why we want the OSP to be written in the Constitution. A proposal has been sent to the Constitution Review Commission that the OSP has to be written in the Constitution. Ghana's Constitution has to have a chapter on anti-corruption. So we have made a proposal for a chapter purposely on anti-corruption. If you find corruption to be one of the biggest problems in Ghana, then you must adequately address that. So these are some of the proposals. But the most important...
And let me just add, you brought in Cecilia Adapa. You speak about money laundering and how technically that doesn't fall under your purview. And that's why you referred it to IOCO. Just as we've seen with Wuntumi and IOCO, because money laundering is one of the issues. But you've reopened the case against Cecilia Adapa. What's the understanding?
No, we did not reopen the case. We are saying that the new leadership of IOCO has now asked us to refer the docket back to them. So that's what we've done.
So what you're saying is IOCO has reopened the case?
Yes.
And you are merely complying with the processes?
The previous leadership thought that there was no case for Madame Dapa to answer, and so they did not look into it at all.
The way you say the previous leadership?
Yes, because it was the previous leadership that we referred the matter to that did not take it up. Now a new leader has come, and the leader thinks that there is a case to answer, and so he wants to take it up. So it's more like saying that the document that was brought to me, to my office, that we thought there was nothing in it. We really want to have a look at it again. So that's the position. Then the last one which I want to talk about is that often people have compared Ghana to other countries and said, oh, they're able to recover faster and bigger and all that, especially Nigeria. Now, there's something that we lack in Ghana, which is what we call non-conviction-based forfeiture, and which goes to what we call reverse burden of proof. So in Nigeria, in Kenya, in South Africa, in the United Kingdom, in the United States of America, when your lawful income does not match your assets, the burden shifts to you to now explain to the court how you came by those assets. That we do not have in Ghana.
At every material time, audits and all of that.
Yes, at every material time, the investigator will need to prove, or the prosecutor will need to prove how you corrupted yourself. And this is a very serious thing. And then it also helps you to do what we call civil forfeiture without necessarily taking the person through criminal trial. So if your lawful income does not match your asset, then, and you're unable to explain, then it's
you must explain
yes,
where those assets have come from. And if you're unable to explain,
So I find you driving S600 and I check, I do intelligence background check and I notice that, well, at multimedia, maybe you are not paid that much. And so how is it that you're able to afford S600 Mercedes Benz? Then that is when the matter starts. I have cross-checked your income. I've seen that you have not won a lottery. I've seen that you don't have any relative who could have bought you that car as a gift. Even if it was a gift, I've not seen any gift tax paid, blah, blah. So we will do all those works. And then we will then present our case before the court that your lawful income does not match this car that you bought. We think that you got it through a corrupt means. Then the burden will shift to you. Now, you need to tell us how you got money to buy the Mercedes-Benz.
Did I get a gift from somewhere that was
If you
not
got a
declared?
gift, you would have known.
And, well, you remember the issue of, do you remember the instance
because
of
you'll be served.
a prominent, church leader in this country
Yes.
and a gift to a child? And
Yeah,
all
so
of
you
that?
must have paid tax on it, so we'll check.
If that person hadn't spoken about it, you probably wouldn't have known about it.
No, it doesn't matter. All we are
gift.
trying to say is that we would have done a thorough investigation to see how you might have come by it. And if the legitimate means that you should have come by, we are not able to find, then you need to explain. Now, once you're able to explain, then you take back your car. But if not, the state takes over. And we are saying
just a
that
quick question.
It's a very important feature that we lack here in Ghana. And if we have it, there will be a lot of recoveries because we believe that many people are unable to account for their wealth. However, it's also very difficult proving how they corrupted themselves.
Right.
Because the two actors involved in corruption usually do not want to talk to you.
And I do understand, I mean, in the UK, France, US, Japan, these are jurisdictions where such things are pretty, you have to. I mean, you may get away with it for a while, but eventually the long arms of the law will catch up with you. However, in our instance, are there cases, because of how porous even the tax and other systems are there instances where you may assume this person must have dabbled in some corruption, only to find out that, oh, this person has XYZ streams of income that are legitimate, and so that is how the person is making the money?
Yes, through investigation, you are able to uncover that. At the OSP, we have something we call Declaration of Property and Income form. Anytime you are a suspect of the OSP, you'll be administered with that form. Now, that form is very exacting. It asks you to tell us the things you have, including monies that you might have lodged with your girlfriend. And it's compulsory that you fill that form. You have 30 days within which to fill that form. Now, failure to fill that form in itself is a criminal offense, where you can go to jail for a minimum of 2 years, a maximum of 4 years. Now, if we say fill the form...
And this is for someone who is suspected of having engaged in...
Yes. And if we say fill the form, and you don't disclose certain things that you have, but we are able to go behind and independently verify it belongs to you, it's also automatically forfeited to the state. So I'm saying that there are several ways in which we are able to detect your income.
Right.
Because we are able to summon your bank records, call records, so many other things that we can use to detect whether you indeed, or we can check your taxes, whether you pay. In this country, people do not pay taxes. Can you imagine if we have this non-conviction-based forfeiture? It will make people now pay their taxes, because if we check with the tax person, you said it's a gift. In Ghana, when you get a gift, you must pay a gift tax. Why is there no payment of a gift tax? Then it means it's not a gift. I don't know if you appreciate that.
What is the threshold for these gifts? And I say that, the current president has spoken about, yes, we have assets declaration, and they have their own code of conduct, and he's pegged, this gift thing at 20,000 Ghana cedis. What does the OSP say on that? Well, what is the threshold?
The OSP law does not talk about gift and its threshold. That's why we have something we call the Cooper Bill. And the Cooper Bill is essentially a code of conduct bill, which the hope is that when it's passed, it will align all these things. But currently, the presidency have
you say when it's passed, is this something you're working on?
Yeah, it's something that's, that Ghana has been working on. It won't be the OSP, just Shraj, almost all the anti-corruption bodies, plus civil society, have been demanding. It's also an international requirement that we're able to pass a code of conduct law. Now, currently, what is at the presidency is just a code, which means that it can be enforced only at the presidency. But if it becomes a law, then it gives law enforcement agencies like the OSP that have a mandate under corruption to now take you on. So, for instance,
should that be eventually where we get?
That is
Because
where
some people have said that don't just leave it as a code of conduct. It must become a law. Is that the
no,
next
that
step?
is where we are going. And if you saw Majority Leader the other time in Parliament, some of the bills that were listed, the Code of Conduct bill had also been listed. So if it's passed, and let's say we fix gift to be 10,000, if anybody gives you a gift above 10,000, it raises the red flags. You understand? But currently, if it's just a code, then the punishment will not necessarily involve criminal processes. It's just either you are sanctioned or your salary is deducted and that sort of thing. But it's a very important law, not just for Ghana, but also for us to meet international requirements. So it is something that we need to work on it. And then the issue of asset declaration, we also know that our law is not fit for purpose, and we need to work on it so that there will be independent verification of the assets as well. So in a nutshell, this is the OSP. I do not want to drag this too much, but the point we are making is that the OSP has now come to stay. It takes a while. People do not understand that in Ghana, even the average criminal trial takes 3 years. And if you do the reckoning and know that the OSP, the second special prosecutor, was sworn into office in 2021, and the office had to be set up. For instance, there has to be logistics, equipment, the entire building had to be furnished and worked on. People have to be trained. We have to now employ staff. They have to be on probation for 1 year and go through training. We are now building, through the help of the European Union, a forensic lab, interrogation rooms. It takes a while to even set up the office. But what this special prosecutor did was to cast the seal whilst building it. He cast the craft onto the sea, and then he was building it. So we've gotten to the point where we can now say that the OSP is now firmly rooted and established, and is ready to do its work.
All right.
And all this while that people thought that there was nothing happening, the OSP was investigating on the quiet. You know, what we do usually is that because people are presumed innocent, the whole idea of the office is to do things on the quiet. So as I speak to you, there are so many people who are on bail from the OSP, but you do not know, because until we are ready to charge them, sometimes you decide not to bring it out. The only time you hear the OSP come out is when people give us a cause to come out. So the OSP has invited you and you decide not to show up. Then you are giving the OSP cause to enforce the law. And in enforcing the law, it doesn't mean that the OSP is overreaching.
Can you give us, some approximates of the number of people that would be on bail?
If I'm not mistaken, I don't want to give a figure, but if I look
you can give us a ballpark figure.
If I give some figure, it may be those that may be nearly due for court.
Right.
Maybe you're looking at, say, 20
to
about 30.
Okay, so between 20 and 30.
Yeah, a lot of people are on bail. But you wouldn't know, because we are saying that until the processes are well done and we filed in court, that's when we start to talk about them.
Okay. I want you to elaborate on the Ken Ofori-Atta situation in a bit, but I have this question. A lawyer sends me this and says the OSP is unfit for purpose. The office is a duplication of the process. The state police is the most independent institution. How do you react to that? It's a stone that has always been thrown at the special prosecutor,
it's
even
true.
Talking about the relevance vis-a-vis the Attorney General's office.
It's a very interesting question. It comes up all the time, but it's also, if I should say, it's a little bit of ignorance, although you say it's coming from a lawyer. In every jurisdiction, they have what we call police. If you go to America, they have the police. If you go to Togo, they have the police. If you go to Kenya, they have the police. But the world over came together and said that the fight against corruption requires more than just police. It requires specialized institution that needs to be set up. Now, people have even said that the OSP is a duplication of duty of other agencies. It's not true. I'll take you to Nigeria. In Nigeria, they have what they call EFCC. They have what they call ICPC. They have what we call the Code of Conduct Bureau. They have several other agencies. They are all fighting corruption. But each one has their speciality that they focus on. So it's not even true that in Ghana we have a lot of anti-corruption, but it's not true. Strictly speaking, the OSP is the anti-corruption body, right? And then we also have the Economic Crimes Office.
Could this burden not have been carried by the Attorney General, especially if there were splits between the Attorney General representing the state and the Minister of Justice representing the people?
That is what has been done by the lawmaker. The OSP, it's that body. The reason why it's very difficult to put such power in the Attorney General is that he is a member of cabinet. You don't expect him to be sitting with cabinet, they take decisions, and then he pass their back and start prosecuting them, right? That's why it's always been advised that you must get an independent person who is not a member of cabinet, but who is able to check the people in cabinet. So that's the whole idea. But the point I was making is that there's no duplicity in Ghana. In fact, we even need more hands to fight corruption. If you take Shraj does civil corruption matters. The OSP does what we call criminal corruption, right? And Yoko does what we call economic and organized crime. Yes, there are areas where they may overlap, but that is where the issue of collaboration comes in. That's why that you saw that in the Cecilia Park case, the OSP had referred it to Iyoko. Iyoko also refers cases that border on our mandate to us. But all I'm trying to say is that this notion that the OSP is a duplication is not true. And it's a fallacy because in every jurisdiction, if you go to South Africa right now, the same that I'm talking about, you find. They have the public protector, they have the SIU, they have the police. There's a reason why specialization is important. And that is why Ghana came up with the answer and said that we are giving you one body that will not just investigate, but is able to prosecute without reference to the Attorney General. How about if the Attorney General doesn't want this person prosecuted?
Right. So those are interesting dynamics. Did you say earlier that the Special Prosecutor's Office had both prosecutorial, and police powers? And I say that because of certain questions that have been raised. Did you say that?
Yes.
Clarify.
All right. So, like I said, the OSP is a prosecutorial office that has been given police powers in the law. So it means that the OSP is able to investigate. In the course of investigating, anything that the police are able to do, the OSP is able to do, which includes that it can arrest you, it can seize your property, it can freeze your assets.
At what point do the law courts come in?
Well, the law courts come in when there has to be what we call confirmation of some things. So, for instance, when the OSP arrests you, it cannot keep you for more than 48 hours, right? After 48 hours, they need to put you before court. The court comes in. When the OSP seizes your vehicle, the law says that it can seize the vehicle for up to 7 days. But after 7 days, it needs to go to court and confirm the seizure. When the OSP freezes your account, it can do so for 14 days. But after 14 days, it needs to go to court and confirm the freeze. So that is how the courts come. And when the OSP investigates you and then is convinced that there is sufficient evidence that you might have committed the offense, it places you before the court. And the court will now determine whether the evidence indeed implicates you. And the court is the one that will convict you.
All right. Let's look at Ken Ofori-Atta. He's been under investigation, among other things, for the Petroleum and Minerals Revenue Assurance issue, electricity contract termination, National Cathedral ambulance deal, GRA tax P fund, and you've even mentioned some other matters in there. The core timelines we've been looking at, January 2025, the OSP naming him a subject, summoning him on the 10th of February, and then the agreements in between. I don't want to belabor the point. And then 18th of February, appealing to the OSP, a firm May return date being given and granted. We find ourselves in June, and then the complications in there. Ken Ofori-Atta's lawyers have spoken. What is the real situation in respect of Ken Ofori-Atta? We followed what the OSP said. Why is there a problem? Why can't he just virtually, interact with the OSP? Where does the problem lie? First
of all, let me also say this. Those of us in the media tend to usually make things this against this. So they will say, Kisie Javin against Ken Ofori-Atta. I think that style of presenting is wrong. Remember, the OSP is a state institution. It cannot be.
It's the office, but the arrowhead, we see.
No, I understand, but I'm just trying to correct that. It makes it feel as if there is a rift. There's no rift. What is happening is that a law enforcement agency, having done its investigation, is convinced that a particular Ghanaian has committed an offense and that the person has to answer for it. So that's what is happening. So it's not like Kisia Jabin against Ken Ofori-Atta. It's law enforcement agency going after a suspect.
Well, I don't know what you're thinking, but there's no such suggestion that
the real case
any
between
individual
the
against somebody.
OSP is simply that the OSP is investigating Mr. Ofori-Atta. The difficulty has been that the OSP has not the chance to physically interview Mr. Ofori-Atta. That's the whole difficulty. So there is really nothing happening. Why is it a difficulty? The difficulty is stemming from the fact that Mr. Ofori-Atta has not made himself available. So I typically use a simple example. If you are working here at Multimedia and you cannot make it to work, I presume what you do is that you are likely to either send your supervisor a message and say you are not feeling well. Or if, say, you have been to the hospital and they've diagnosed you of something, you are likely to send a medical report to come and say that, well, I was not feeling well. They diagnosed me of malaria and they said I should stay home for 3 days. That report will come to the supervisor. Is that not it? That's exactly what is happening here. So what is happening here is that a suspect says that he is sick and cannot come. Now, the difficulty is this. The suspect has not provided any medical report. So I hear the lawyers say that there's a medical report. Please, it's not true. The suspect has not provided any medical report of.
Is there a biopsy report?
There's no biopsy report. And that is where I was saying that the Multimedia in particular allowed the lawyer for Ken Ofori-Atta to go on and rant and...
Are you speaking of Frank Davies?
And insult almost everybody's intelligence.
You should specify.
Because...
It's Frank Davies you're referring to.
Because they have
Please clarify for me. Is it Frank Davies you're referring to?
Any lawyer for Ken Ofori-Atta who has spoken on your network has said that there is a... So you just asked me, and I'm thinking that your presumption is that he's told you that there is a biopsy report. There is no biopsy report with the OSP. There is no medical report with the OSP. Nothing. What is there is just a letter by Ken Ofori-Atta's lawyer saying that our client is sick and is going to do a surgery, so he cannot come. But if you are so minded, we can send you his biopsy for you to have a look at it. Now, who takes a biopsy? No. A medical report means that there is a medical case where the administrator of the hospital has certified, and it will contain all the queries on the person, the opinions of the medical person supervising, and then any other thing that they need to provide, they will provide it in a whole document. And this document will have to be signed by the medical administrator, and it will be addressed to the investigating authority to say that, hey, this client of ours cannot come to you because he is incapacitated, or if he's to fly even for 2 hours, he's going to die. So please, we will ask that you give us 6 months for him or her to recover. That is what we call a medical report. But what we are talking about here is just a suspect sending you a letter, and the letter saying that I'm not well, I'm going to do a surgery, and I've been advised not to do A, B, C, D, or that. But if you are so interested, I will send you a copy of my biopsy. Remember, you are not a free man walking. You are a suspect in a serious investigation. So police is coming to arrest you, and they call you and say, come to our office. And you tell the police officer, oh, I'm not feeling well, or I'm going to Kolebu. So I do not know when I'll be done with Kolebu. So when I'm done with Kolebu, I'll come. Do you think that the policeman will take such excuse?
Let me just clarify here. You've made a point, and yesterday, listening to the special prosecutor, I heard him make reference to this purported biopsy, right? And he spoke to it. He even went further to talk about what a biopsy is and all of that. My issue, though, has to do with the lawyer says, okay, there was some report. The OSP says, even this biopsy means nothing because it's not a full-scale medical report. A simple, explanation of a biopsy per the Cambridge Dictionary. It says the process of removing and examining a small amount of tissue from a sick person in order to discover more about their illness. I don't know why then the OSP or the SP decided to bring in the biopsy, but what it then means is that for you, it is totally irrelevant. You don't have a full-scale medical report, not even that biopsy report. That's what you're saying?
Yes.
You don't even have a biopsy report?
We don't have a biopsy report. And I heard that the lawyer also said that they presented his medical report to the court. That's also false. In fact, the court case has nothing to do with his health condition. The court case simply has to do with the previous declaration of him as a wanted person. That's all. So they have not even presented any document of his medical condition to any court of competent jurisdiction. Again, that is also not true. Okay. But we understand propaganda, right? A law enforcement agency will not concern itself so much with propaganda. The only reason why you may see us talk about it is also that it's important that the Ghanaian public who have so much interest in this case get to know the facts so that they are not tainted with propaganda and think that somebody is doing something wrong. Right. One, Ken Ofori-Atta has not presented any medical report to the SP. Because remember, if you're able to present a certified medical report by a hospital administrator, are you aware that law enforcement agencies are also required to do an independent assessment of your report to be sure whether it's even true?
I mean, that's why in court we'll have expert witnesses sometimes, medical professionals and others who may be well versed in.
So there's no medical report from Mr. Ofori-Atta. It's just he's saying that he's not well and cannot come.
Okay.
And this is what happened in the first case. So in the first case, when we asked him to come, he said that he was on medical tourism and does not know when he will come. And we said that you cannot determine whether you come or when you don't come, when a law enforcement agency summons you. You don't have that right.
All right.
Right? And then he said, then he said that, well, then we said that if you don't give us a definitive date, we're going to declare you wanted.
I think all of these matters have been
done. No, but it's important that you let people understand that.
And I think the understanding is it's there, it's clear. The point, though, one issue that has been raised is about the seeming insensitivity of the special prosecutor, because the whole talk about a cancer, we don't know specifically where or what. But I do recall counsel for Ken Ofori-Atta was not happy with that. Was it necessary to bring it up?
Again, it is not us. It is lawyers for Ken Ofori-Atta. They told you that they have presented his medical report to the court. Did they not say that?
Right.
If you presented a medical report to the court, it's a public document. It's no longer a secret. Remember, this is a very public interest case. And they wrote to us and then told us that their client is suffering from this condition and will not make himself available. It's important that the SP make people aware, especially when they themselves were all over yesterday, talking that they have presented a medical report to the court. And essentially, you are just saying that this is a document that is known to everybody. So if the SP comes out and says that, well, even what they are talking about is not true. They have not presented anything. It's just they are saying to me. The OSP has been very fair. Look, law enforcement can be harsh. But what matters is what we call proportionality and fairness. Okay. And that's why I was saying that if you study the trajectory of this case, the OSP has been very fair with Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta. But we are convinced that he is unwilling to appear. And when you are unwilling to appear, the state gives law enforcement agency power to enforce your appearance. And that's all that we are doing. It has nothing to do whether we are sensitive or insensitive.
Right. The special prosecutor made mention of the fact that, I mean, it has nothing to do with him, like you've rightly mentioned, and that even a former president had been dealt with in the same way. Pointed question, will Ken Ofori-Atta be arrested should he come to Ghana? Because that's part of the fear that we've heard out there. Will he be arrested? When OSP has arresting powers.
When you were speaking to his lawyers, remember they will always tell you that we cannot disclose what we want to do, our next step and all that. Let's allow a law enforcement agency to do its work. We have been put there and trusted with the power to do this job.
So you are not ruling out. You are not ruling out the fact that if Ken Ofori-Atta shows up physically in Ghana, you could arrest him. You are not ruling it out.
Every suspect will be arrested at some point in time, unless after investigation you are innocent. Then
so if Ken Ofori-Atta comes to Ghana, he will be arrested by
every
the special
suspect
prosecutor.
Will be arrested.
So he will be arrested.
Every suspect will be arrested.
Ken Ofori-Atta will be arrested.
The point I'm making to you is that when law enforcement agencies are convinced that you've committed a crime, after speaking to you, and if they are to charge you, you have to
Right.
be taken through the process of arrest. For instance, your fingerprints have to be taken.
Right.
A statement will have to be taken for it. It does not mean that you need to speak to us. You can decide that you even talk.
Right.
But nonetheless, the formality before we can present you before a court has to be fulfilled. And the
Okay.
formality to fulfill is to arrest you, right? When you are arrested,
Right.
first of all, then they will charge you, and then your fingerprints will be taken. Every other details that needs to be taken from you will be taken. Then you will be bailed.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So that's the process. The final bit I want to ask you. You've said that you want to extradite him. You've put him on the red alert. You want to bring him back to Ghana. You've spoken about his likely locations. What will be the process of extradition?
Okay, so it's not like we put him on red alert. We have triggered the process
Right.
for him to be put on the Interpol red alert.
Indeed.
The reason why you have to do that is that you may not be sure which jurisdiction a suspect may move into.
So as of now, you don't know.
It's not that we don't know. We have our intelligence, but what we are saying is that also don't think that a suspect may just be static in one country. That's why you give it to Interpol, so that in case a suspect is moving from country A to B, they may find him. And Interpol, the reason why we have Interpol is so that they may be able to locate the exact place where a suspect may be for you. And we have also triggered the process for extradition. You know that the Attorney General is our central authority for extradition. So that process has also been triggered.
Right.
It takes a while, but we have done what we need to do as law enforcement agents, because we told you that the law also gives us the power to enforce your attendance if you decide not to comply.
Right.
Yes. So that's what we have triggered.
Samuel Apiadako, it's been interesting. But do you have any specific timelines that you're operating in as far as this extradition is concerned?
No, we do not. The OSP does not control the extradition process. What is required of us is to trigger it, and that's what we've done. So the Attorney General, through the presidency, will follow up on those processes, and then the country where he may be found will also have to cooperate with us to what we call the MLA. Our foreign affairs has to come in and all that. It takes a while. So whatever it is, we are working, right? And the SP has hinted that if it's unduly delays and we're unable to get him, and it does happen that the process for what we call trial in absentia is possible, we will explore that.
Right.
I, as a lawyer, I do not believe that it is legal for you to try somebody in absentia when you have not arrested, charged, and all that. The other different school of thought that says that no, you can put a person before a court even if you've not physically. And people say Sednam Tamako case.
I was just about
but
to
the Sednam
mention
case is because she had been arrested, she had been charged, processes had already been done.
Right.
It was only after the trial that they couldn't find her. So there are two schools of thought. Right. I'm of the school of thought that a person ought to be arrested and taken through before you can try the person. Right. Other schools also think that you can do that without arresting the person. And finally, people have said, why did we decline video and all that? Can you arrest somebody through Zoom? Can you take a person's, say, fingerprint through Zoom?
I think we've dealt with that. So you must necessarily,
yes,
you want the person here physically.
So yeah, that's why I've said that. I think that they are treating this as if there's a civil matter that somebody wants to see him and all that. It's not. This is a criminal case.
Matters.
Right.
Sammy, it's been
before
really
I
good.
go, if you give us the opportunity to play our video so that Ghanaians know, can they help us with the last slide? Yes. For Ghanaians to know that the OSP has come to stay, and that if you engage in corruption and the OSP gets to know and there's sufficient evidence, we will come after you, irrespective of who you are. Oh, this has to play.
Well, we may have a challenge with that, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And
it should play, so I don't know why it's not playing.
So we're just going to work it out. Technically, we'll sort it out so that it plays in the background. And so, of course, you may have seen that video before of the Office of the Special Prosecutor. And yes, you'll see the eagle soaring high in the
Yes.
skies of Accra and all of that. Okay, so there we go.
Is there some?
See it all when you're involved in corruption and think you're hiding. We will get you. In the skies, at sea, and on land, we have eyes everywhere. We see it all when you're involved in corruption and think you're hiding. We will get you.
Of